Welcome to the program. A lot of you are not members, you're guests, and we are very pleased to have you. I'm Mary Jones. I'm the Executive Director of the Stuart Heritage Museum. Tonight, our guest is Roger, and is it Lytle?
Correct.
Okay. And he is representing the Highwaymen, and I can't tell you how pleased we are to have this. Gloria also contacted him and asked him. So, and we're going to draw, and then without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to him.
Thank you for allowing us in your facility tonight and tell the Highwaymen story. We'd like to thank Gloria for inviting me. We currently, as we speak, have 3 museum shows going on this month, one in Key West. The city of West Palm Beach has us the entire month of February every year, so we're down there again the entire month. And then we have a major exhibition at the Bacchus Museum in Fort Pierce. If you choose to go there, it would be beneficial. We are the curators for that event. We bring paintings that are like no other. They're most likely one of a kind. And then you also get to see the Bacchus paintings that are also in the museum there. There's a major book out right now that my friend wrote. She's a PhD from New York, Natasha Kuznovic. She wrote the book about Bacchus, Tropical Light, and she won from the state of Florida last year the Gold Award. So that book is available at the Bacchus Museum. So it's an important book to acquire if you choose. It's got a major selection of paintings that they present in the book. The story, the Highwaymen story, is the American success story, starting from nothing, learning how to paint. The very earliest Highwaymen artist, Harold Newton, painted initially religious scenes on velvet. He moved to Vero Beach. He was born in Vero, moved to Georgia, came back, painting these religious scenes. They're not going very well. Meets A.E. Bacchus, Beanie Bacchus from Fort Pierce. Mr. Bacchus doesn't formally teach him. He only formally taught Alfred Hare, but he allowed him into the studio to see what he did. That was the start of that path of success for Harold Newton. This image right up here is a Poinciana by Harold Newton, painted in the 50s. It's on canvas, it's unusual. But anyway, that's a little bit about the track record. The Highwaymen weren't allowed into studios in that era of time, so they had to create their own path. They had to knock on the doors. That's how this story started. There's 26 of them loosely associated from Vero, Fort Pierce. So that's where they're from. A core group of 9, but that's the group. That's kind of how things started evolving. The first one, 1954, Harold Newton. His neighbor, Roy McClendon, 1955, started painting. Roy McClendon's still alive. He was in West Palm Beach last weekend. Got a call from London doing an interview. They already interviewed me. Roy McClendon, here's the phone. You need to talk to them. This publication, this writer, again from London, it's a major publication across the United States with 1 million followers. So those things are expanding. Those also, who was in attendance in West Palm Beach was NBC. NBC's doing a live broadcast on the 28th of this month. We're doing a show in Miramar, 6 p.m. that evening. It'll be broadcast, whether it's nationwide or just local. I'm on the phone with the reporter from NBC, asked me, will Roy McClendon do a live interview? I said, absolutely he will. I'm not quite sure if he would, I just answered without him being there, but called Roy up, hey Roy, do you mind doing this? I'll do it. When I said that to the reporter, yes, they'll do it. He said, wait, let me ask his management to see if it's okay. I said, no, wait. No, that's not an option. You have to. You have a national treasure here. He's 85. Will that opportunity come up again? You have to interview him. So that's how the conversation went. what we have here is a photograph. This is not staged. This is a photograph of one of the Highwaymen painting one of the classic scenes, what's called the River Road. It's a river, Indian River Drive, from Jensen Beach to Fort Pierce. That image is on that easel. This is, again, not staged. This is in his backyard. This is how the paintings were created. The artist at that easel painted this painting. This is, the painting itself is 30 by 48, very large. It's actually on view at the Bacchus Museum to date, and that exhibit ends on the March 4th. This Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have a 3-day event at the Bacchus Museum Friday night between 6 and 8. Some of the artists will be there speaking, but if you choose to attend, then you get to see this major exhibit that we bring every year. Different paintings every year, but a major exhibit. This is another painting by the same artist. Classic colors, you know, painting these paintings in their backyard, taking them on the street, not working for anybody, self-employed. It's a lot better than picking fruit. That was their most likely work opportunity in that era of time. Something in the agricultural industry in Fort Pierce. It wasn't easy. I think sometimes on how difficult that must have been to knock on doors, but they did. You know, there was that drive to succeed was in them. So this is what they did, and this is what they created and knocked on the doors and showed people to purchase. Alfred Hare, the only artist in the group that was taught formally by Bacchus. Bacchus took him in under his wing, kind of showed him what's going on, told him to slow down. Alfred Hare didn't want to slow down. He wanted to be a millionaire by the time he was 35. He can't paint slowly like Bacchus and achieve that. His method of operation was, if I could paint 10 of these, well, to Bacchus's one, and sell them for the same amount of money, I'm making as much as Bacchus. So that kind of method, that kind of style of art was created. The book author Gary Monroe said there's 2 artists in the Highwaymen group that had their own style. James Gibson, Alfred Hare. Alfred Hare, at the peak of his career, 29 years old, gunned down in a bar. Gunned down in a bar on Avenue D, a bar called Eddie's Place. So, you know, you have this success story, and then taken away quickly for really no reason. I want to live in this house. A little house by the river, I would be perfectly happy there, believe me. That's scenes like this is what Florida was about. This kind of property, this property on the water in Florida, what typically happens, they come in and tear the building down, they build a big home or something substantial on that property. But this is a classic scene by Alfred Hare, the poincianature with the little shack on the water. So something that collectors would like to own. I believe this is on display at the Bacchus Museum. Roy McClendon, 85. He'll be 86 in March next month. He's the one who's going to be interviewed by NBC on the 28th. So I, again, don't know if it's on the national broadcast or if it's just local, but he was interviewed again by someone from London. I asked him, do you still like to paint? He says, absolutely. He still loves to paint, 85, and he can. So he does. West Palm Beach, we had him. We had a 62-year-old son that paints, and then his 58-year-old daughter. They're all up in front of the audience asking these questions. It was interesting. His daughter on the phone with London says, oh yeah, I recall a story. My father all week long painted the paintings, took them on the road, had a very successful week. He comes home with a pink Thunderbird. His father, Roy McClendon, came home. The interviewer said, was that for your wife? He said, oh no, it was for himself. His wife made him take it back. She wouldn't let him keep it. But this is you see the earlier image of someone in their backyard. Roy McClendon is not in his backyard. He has his own studio. Roy McClendon with my wife, Bowie, important painting. This is what's called a washerwoman scene. If you look on the bottom left, there's a woman hanging clothes. So from a historical perspective, someone hanging clothes, the artist looking out his front door and recording that in oil. Those are important images that were recorded by them. There's Roy, well-used area that he's painting around. Look at the paint and you know, a lot of time spent in that chair, but that painting that he's painting is in someone's home right now. Someone's enjoying that image somewhere. But an American success story sitting in that chair. I don't know if a lot of you know any of the Highwaymen. This is Roy Black. He's the salesman for Alfred Hare. He's a very good salesman, believe me. He could, Mary Ann Carroll, the only woman in the group, said that Al Black could sell him a jacket to a mosquito. That's what she said about Roy or Al Black. Very good salesman. Alfred Hare ended up having 4 sales staff. That's how quickly those paintings were being sold. So he was painting these paintings, the money was coming in, they were living a very good life. I had a lawyer come to my house from Palm Beach. He said, Alfred Hare used to come to my office and mine the paintings up. I bought a few of them. I wish I would have bought more. He said Alfred Hare was making more money than I was, and I was a lawyer in Palm Beach. And I don't doubt that. Al Black, we had a museum exhibit at the Vero Beach Museum of Art, and typically you don't sell paintings outside the museum. But you know, this is how things work. This is how things are done. Things were always done this way. He's got a medal from the state of Florida for their achievement. In 2004, they were nominated into the Florida Artists Hall of Fame. Jimmy Buffett's in the Florida Artists Hall of Fame. Gloria Estefan is in the Florida Artists Hall of Fame. The Highwaymen are. This photo doesn't tell the whole story. Behind him, there was a line of probably 25 people waiting to buy every one of those paintings, and he sold everything that you're looking at. Mary Ann Carroll and Michelle Obama. Mary Ann Carroll presented Michelle Obama at the Women's Luncheon. It's the most prominent women's affair in Washington, yearly affair. She was invited and presented Michelle Obama with a painting. This is the U.S. Embassy in Ottawa. We have Mary Ann Carroll again in Ottawa, so the story doesn't really have borders. We're going across, you know, our continental lines, and you know, in Ottawa. So interesting. I bought paintings from someone from Canada, so you know, they are everywhere. I know someone who has a Highwayman painting in Hawaii. They were purchased in this area, but they didn't stay here. They migrated north. A lot of people down here on vacation, they bought them back north. So the paintings are literally everywhere. James Gibson, I don't know if any of you knew James. He just recently passed away. He was someone that would come to Grassy Waters Preserve in West Palm Beach every year. I always called him the ambassador. He's always very well dressed, very well spoken, very much in demand, the paintings that he was creating. So, but there he is. But he was just a great guy. Okay, you have Beanie Bacchus. You have this core important figure in this story in a very well-used kitchen, as you can see. The bottom right is the stove. It looks like it might have got some paint splashed on it at some point. A friend of mine, his mother, they used to party over at Bacchus's house, telling me the story. Bacchus gets a new refrigerator for having a party that night. At the end of the night, the refrigerator was no longer white. They painted the entire refrigerator, everybody at the party. But Bacchus loved to cook, and you can tell by that kitchen, looks like it's well used. This is the book my friend produced, but again, a major publication and worth getting if you choose. This is one of the paintings that's in the book, and it's also on display at the Bacchus Museum if you choose to go to the Bacchus Museum. It's a Harold Newton 30 by 48 inches, very colorful. You can tell by the photograph here it's impressive, but it really isn't anything like when the image is in front of you, and it's impressive. This is the painting that I referred to earlier. I bought for $11,000 from my friend's grandmother, who bought it at the yard sale for $10. But it's a very large painting. Again, it's 3 foot by 5 foot. It's what's called a Riamar scene. I don't know if many of you know Riamar Beach in Vero. It's a kind of a point, and they painted that frequently. They would paint things frequently that sold. They had to. They needed to eat. Harold Newton especially, he had 12 children, so he better be painting, he better be selling those paintings. Very skilled. I never, looking back and just thinking about how this unfolded, I don't think the paintings had to be sold. I think they were just shown. They were that good. This painting is has a story behind it. I bought it from my friend's store in Vero Beach over the phone. He said, I have a very nice Harold Newton painting. It's $6,000. I said, I'll take it. I didn't even see it, but I bought it. He said it was good, so I just bought it. It's at noon. I picked the painting up at 4 o'clock. Someone behind me sees me pay for it. He goes, I like that painting. I'll buy it from you for $10,000. I didn't sell it. This painting was in the Boston Globe about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. They had an article in the Boston Globe. Some of the images by the Highwaymen were represented, and that's one of them. It's a Harold Newton painted a lot of paintings in the 50s, early 60s that were on canvas for. They're very important. They were different. They weren't the typical run-of-the-mill. They varied quite a bit. So, but they were really good because he knew how to paint at that point. Alfred Hare painting. Alfred Hare, Harold Newton knew each other very well. Harold Newton said to Alfred Hare, all the palms that you paint look like they're going to fall over. There's an example of one that looks like it's going to fall over. Alfred Hare, painting of a palm on the Indian River. Some of the paintings are very historically significant. You have a child playing with a tire. Kids today don't have a tire they're playing with. They have an iPhone, iPad, some kind of electronic device. I was showing this image to another group of people, and someone yelled from the back, you can tell it's old. Look at the tire. It's a big white wall. Absolutely. That was from the 50s. I asked Roy McClendon. It's a Roy McClendon. The woman with her hands on her hips. He said it was his son. He looked out his window and his son was playing with a tire. So he just captured that in oil. So these are significant historically. It has a building. Generally, the Highwaymen were known for landscapes. When they add these elements of a building, people, they are different. They're the rarer images that you come across. This has the point sienna tree, the building, the woman with her hands on her hips, and he said it was his son. So I captured Roy. He captured Roy McClendon, his son, with the tire, but we ended up with the painting. Harold Newton. They said Harold Newton could paint with a spoon, a feather. He was that skilled. He could paint a painting 18 inches by 24 inches in 1 hour. That's how skilled he was. And the paintings he painted in that time frame were very, very good. We did I curated a show for the Vero Beach Museum of Art. This was the image they used on their handout material. It's all palette knife. There's no brush stroke, so a very important painting, very well done. That's on display at the Bacchus Museum. Here's a image of something that was fairly common, these little boathouses, these little buildings on the Indian River. Those are generally in such disrepair, they don't fix them anymore, they fall into the water, they're not repaired, and just not something that's done anymore. So you have the individual in the foreground with 2 boats. There's a drying. The dock has some nets over it. So, a painting painted in 1957 by Harold Newton. Unusual scene. Just something unusual. This is by Livingston Roberts, another Poinciana with the building on the river. He was one of the core members, the first 5 in the group. This painting has cows in it. Harold Newton painting with cows. They're sought after by collectors. This painting was found in a yard sale in Port St. Lucie. Probably paid $2 for it, most likely. They're not $2 anymore, I can assure you of that. I've seen them sell for $8,000 to $12,000 with a cow in it. Not uncommon. Alfred Hare classic scene. This is double signed for some reason. Alfred Hare, I have a couple of them that have signature on both corners. He painted it. Just an early painting, probably not long after leaving the connection with Bacchus. In 1965, and he moved into a house on Dunbar Street, 2804 Dunbar in Fort Pierce, right off Avenue D. And he had the production line going then. Those paintings were being produced quickly. That's when he had the 4 sales staff that were going on the road. They took the paintings, they made the frames. When the frames were attached to the painting, it created a space. They're oil paintings, they don't dry. They need to have that space. They stacked them in the vehicles, gave them to Al Black. We'll see you later, Al Black. See you later today. Al Black would come home with all of the paintings sold. One woman in the group, Mary Carroll, she was very popular on Friday. She had a car to take the paintings on the road to sell. A lot of them didn't have cars. So, very unusual painting. You don't think of Highwaymen paintings that look like this. This is Harold Newton. Looks like a Jamaican scene. It's got mountains in the background. There's no vegetation in it. It's got the child with the diaper on, overflowing garbage can on the bottom right. Woman has an apron on. People walking down the road, 7 buildings. Look at how thick the paint is. All palette knife, no brushwork. These are sought after by collectors. Another Riamar scene, but it's, I think it was found in, I bought it in Fort Lauderdale. I think it was from a yard sale or something. Someone found it. It's on canvas. That's how these paintings were treated. I found one. I asked people if they have them. I live across the street, not far from the 7-Eleven off of A1A in Vero Beach. Someone in front of me, I asked them, do you have any of these paintings? He says, yes, I do. I have one in my lawn trailer outside. I said, do you mind if I take a look at it? Sure, come on out. In his lawn trailer, had all the mowers in there, had his weed eaters all on the racks on the side. On the side of the, inside the lawn trailer was a Sam Newton 2-foot by 3-foot beautiful painting. At one time, the weed eater head was leaning against it, so every time it went down the road, it had a hole about 8 inches, almost all the way through it. But it was a beautiful painting. I would have given that to a friend maybe before I put the weed eater head up against it, but that's how things were. That's how they were treated. This is probably the most important painting by the Highwaymen. The name of the painting is called Eddie's Place. This was where Alfred Hare was gunned down. Harold Newton painted this in the 50s. Alfred Hare was gunned down in 1970 in this bar, so he just happened to paint Eddie's Place and then what happened there. But a very unusual painting. All these people, again, in front of Eddie's Place, and it was captured by the premier artist in the group, Harold Newton. Vero Beach Museum of Art exhibit we had. They had the largest attendance, the director told me, they had the largest attendance they ever had with this show that we put on, and it was in the summer. They did have one other event in the history of the Vero Beach Museum of Art that had a larger attendance. This attendance, again, was the largest, and it was in the summer. They wouldn't allow us to have it in the premier season event. They, I guess, didn't feel it would meet the standards, but we were allowed to have it. It was very successful. Bacchus Museum, completely modified. They have a big wing on it that they spent a lot of money on, so it's, again, worth visiting. Some paintings, the Point Siena. Painted the Point Siena very frequently because it was a scene that people liked. They bought the Point Siena. Again, they needed to eat, so they're painting that painting. It's never the same Point Siena. There might be other trees, different location, different time of day. You have top right, Harold Newton, bottom right, Harold Newton, bottom left, Alfred Hare. The top left is a Roy McClendon. The kids in that scene in the top left, they're playing with marbles. Again, a historical painting that captured that. You know, kids don't play with marbles that I'm aware of. I don't know, they may, I never have, but that's in the 50s or early 60s, playing with marbles. This photograph is MIA, Miami International Airport. They have a gallery within the airport, such a big airport. They had a Highwaymen exhibit in the Miami International Airport. That's a photograph of it. This is the Vero Beach Museum of Art. We have artist Willie Daniels with the hat on. So people mingling, a lot of attendance. I had a big buyer there. I'm at the museum. We put the show on. He flies in from New York. He comes in. My wife likes these paintings. I want to buy them. I said, we can't sell them to you. I know you would like them. And you can certainly afford them. I understand that, but we have to go to your house right now and buy paintings. I said, are you kidding me? We have all these people around in the museum, just opened. You know, we had a big lecture. No, we have to go right now. I said, okay, we'll go to my house. Whatever we have to do, we'll get you a painting. Drive to his house. He has his Bentley outside, and I'm not kidding about that. He has a Bentley. He's extremely wealthy. He had to pick a couple paintings off my walls in my house, so everything's okay. He ended up buying, I can't tell you how many, probably 200 Highwaymen, 100 Bacchus paintings at least he's had in the last 4 or 5 years he bought. This image isn't very clear, but it's the group, it's the Highwaymen group with their medals. This is the State of Florida award that they received. So, you know, an important photograph. You have Zenobia Jefferson in the center. She was Alfred Hare's teacher. Zenobia Jefferson introduced Alfred Hare to A.E. Bacchus, and that chain of events unraveled. To the right of her with the white, that was Carnell Smith. He recently passed away. He was so big, Carnell Smith. This guy was no joke. He was huge. His neck was as big as his head. Anytime I would see him, I said, hey, Carnell, if anything happens here, if anything goes down, you and I are together, right? Me and you were tight. And he would laugh. I would tell him the same thing every time I seen him, but he was a preacher. So he, you know, he elevated himself. That's it. That's it for the show. If you have any questions whatsoever, we are knowledgeable about the Highwaymen. We've been doing this a long time. We know a little bit about it, a little bit about the painting we brought in over there. That's a typical painting, what you're looking at to my right, the Breaking Wave. That's a 24 by 30 inch size, usually sold for $25. They made the frame. They bought the board. The Upson board came in sheets, 4 foot by 8 foot. They cut it to the size they need. They prime it and then paint it. So they had to buy the paint, buy the wood to make the frame, paint the frame, and then you know, create the painting itself, and then take it on the road and sell it for generally $25. It's talked about where they used house paint for these paintings. That's not accurate. It's oil paint for paintings. The only thing they used house paint for was the frames themselves. So that's a little bit about the painting. That is on Upson board, a material commonly used up until 1984. They stopped making it. So does anybody have any questions? Anything? Yes.
Are all the paintings signed?
No, some of them weren't, and it's just, it wasn't that important. Not, generally they signed them though, generally they did. One of the artists would sign, Al Black would sign Willie Daniels paintings all the time. They're not Al Blacks. He would sign them as a way to sell them. He would take them on the road. Of course this is my painting, here's my signature on it. That's what he did. So when we have that, we have Willie re-sign it, so we have both signatures, the legitimate artist and then the sales. Question, yes?
Or the original 5?
Original 5, Harold Newton, Alfred Hare, James Gibson, Livingston Roberts, and Roy McClendon. So there you go. You got it. Thank you for the help out there. Yes.
I have 2 questions for you.
Yes.
One, I've been told that for every person that's in the painting, it might add $1,000 to that. Is there any accuracy to that? And
That's
2,
probably a low number. Let me tell you that.
okay. The second question
Usually
is,
a low number. Could be. Depends on who the artist was. What was your second
the
question?
second question is, I see a lot of oil poinsettia trees.
Yes.
Are there a lot of jacarandas that have been painted, or is that more rare?
Unusual. They just probably didn't sell as easily. We have one right now. It's a newer one by Sam Newton. Anything by Harold Newton, unusual, key artist. That's a target artist. Yes.
Can you get copies of Prince? I mean, I have a Bacchus. It's beautiful. It's huge, my house. And
The Bacchus Museum has rights to Bacchus, copyrights, and I probably wouldn't
and to the Highwaymen.
suggest that. The Highwaymen, really, they also have rights. They're rights that I probably wouldn't intrude on. We don't. So anyway, I probably wouldn't. Do you want to sell your Bacchus? I know some people buy it. Actually, I'm not kidding. Anybody else have a question? Anything?
How can you tell if it was an Al Black painting or if it was one of the
I
others?
just could tell from if it was on that wall back there. I've just seen so many. It's like anybody doing anything, you get proficient at it, and I've seen plenty of them. I know. Yes, sir.
Are they all oils?
They're all oil paintings, except one of the artists, R.L. Lewis, painted in acrylic, and Al Black painted in acrylic in the prison system. So other than that, they're all oils. Yes.
Friday night at the Bacchus Museum.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a whole weekend event?
Yes.
Who's going to be
Friday.
there Friday night?
We are. Anyway, the Highwaymen artists, I know they've been invited. Who will attend? I can't speak for them. Between 6 and 8 Friday evening will be a fun event, so we're always there on Friday night. Does someone have a question? Yes, sir.
We have paintings, the sign Blood did it. Doesn't have nobody's name, just Blood did it.
Oh, Black. That's Al Black.
How about?
Maybe it was, maybe it was Will.
I've heard that it was, but I don't know.
It might have been, but maybe Willie Daniels. Love did it. I've heard of that painting, or maybe I've seen it before. Yes.
Do you have any estimate of how many paintings are out there?
Question was how many paintings were created. Really, no one tracked that. It didn't matter, but I would definitely say 200,000 plus. But how many survived? I've seen these paintings just traded. I bought one that was found in the garbage in Fort Pierce, and this is not uncommon. Found in the garbage is a Harold Newton beautiful painting. I paid $6,000 for it. I thought it was nice. Paid $6,000. It's in the Harold Newton book. So these paintings were treated as, not really anything. It's surprising, but that's how it went. Yes. Question, anybody? Yes.
I was at the show in Fort Pierce a couple of weeks ago at the Jetson Appliances.
Yes.
It was very good. And I was talking to a gentleman, and I was telling him that I had found an Alfred Hare in a junk store in Sevierville, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him he also had a Harold Newton. And he said, well, Alfred Hare is not very important. He said he used to run them on an assembly line. He'd paint a little bit and then hand them off to somebody else and let them paint. Is that true?
Harold Newton moved into Dunbar, like I said, at 65. The ones before that, Alfred Hares are very important. Any one of them, I don't care how quickly they were painted, they are important. Important part of the story. He was the only one with a tie to Bacchus. So don't quite listen to everything. Again, the book author, Gary Monroe, said the fact that he painted them quickly doesn't mean that they're not important. And that's true.
No,
He
I
said there's
found it hard to believe because he said that he might paint a palm tree and somebody would come along and one of the other artists and would say, well, I need one with 3 palm trees in it. Let me take it and I'll finish it for you.
What
I
he
found
did-
that hard to believe.
What he did at Dunbar Street, he did have the assembly line to some degree. He had these paintings nailed up. They would paint the background. He would come in and paint those highlights. That again was 1965 and later. He would paint the wave and the palm and maybe some of the sky. But some of that background, he did have people like 65 and later do that. But prior to that, some of those paintings that we had shown here, that was not the case at all. Alfred Hare clearly painted that entire painting.
I don't know when this one was painted. All I know is that I found it and I paid $28 for it
Yeah,
in
I
a
hear
drugstore.
stories like that. There was a woman found a painting in Pompano Beach at a yard sale. She picked it up, set it down. The woman behind her picked it up, bought it, $2. A dealer bought it for $13,000, sold it to my friend for $24,000 in a yard sale. Does that happen? Very rarely, very rarely. But the image itself was important, so that's what drove the price. They're not all worth that. Some of them are though. Some of them have that value. Anybody else? Any question at all? Yes.
What is the highest one that you've seen that was the highest amount of paid for?
I know definitely right around 40. I know my friend's been offered a lot more. I just bought one for $27,500. Highwaymen by Harold Newton. It's on the display. Very rare painting though. Yes, sir.
I've got a set of 3 that are, all these are in color, these are in black and white.
Right. Early James Gibson, and that's what he did. He painted those two-tone colors. Gary Monroe felt they were very important, though. They were kind of a painting style that he created on his own. And really, I think, in New York City, if you had those on an apartment, in your apartment in New York, they would probably fit in perfect. They were kind of different, and people have asked in front of me, James Gibson, why do you paint that? It was just a way to paint quickly, it was just what he did at the time. Someone else have a question? Yes, sir.
Couldn't understand, you said that painting was in the garbage and you paid $6 for it.
I'm not the one who found it. Someone else did, but it was in the
I was
garbage.
going to say,
I didn't find it, I wish I had. But that's not one. There's many that have been found in the garbage. I've been in Gifford. I don't know if you know where Gifford. Lady calls me, I think I have some of those out in my shed. I'll look out there. I'm digging through this shed in the middle of summers. Found 3 Alfred Hare paintings that she had in there in the shed. So not looked at as important. So anybody else? I appreciate you coming tonight, hearing the story. It's an important story to be shared with the public, and thanks. Thank you.